What's up, everybody? Just real quick, want to tell you how you can come support the Truthzilla podcast. You can find us over on rockfin.com/Truthzilla. Make yourself a free account. Watch all of our videos there. Don't watch it on YouTube.
All of it.
YouTube's so played out. Who cares?
Fuck YouTube.
You know, we get crypto just for you watching our free videos up there. But we also have premium videos. So if you want to sign up for a monthly membership, you can get access to all those videos, plus all the other content creators on the whole site, which is all your favorites, all our favorites, like all the people from the Union of the Unwanted.
Yep.
You know, they're all on there. So come find us on Rockfin. Also, patreon.com/Truthzilla. Come find us there. You can support the show, just a little monthly contribution. And
Truthzilla.com/shirts.
Truthzilla.org.
Oh, here I go.
Not
But anyways, you can get awesome shirts like this.
Yeah.
You can't even see it, but whatever.
Awesome shirts.
And also, I want to make sure we promote one last time.
Okay.
The 10 stages of genocide. Please,
Please
like and share.
Yep. Scroll back to January. You'll dig it.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy the show. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Truthzilla. My name is Scott. I'm sitting here with my good friend Ed.
Hi, Scott.
What's up, Ed? How you doing? So, unfortunately, the illustrious Megan could not be here tonight. She's up in Portland, infiltrating Antifa, I think, or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Or I think she was. This was her third initiation into the local Rosicrucian chapter or something like that. Wasn't that it?
Wow. Yeah, I tune out at some point.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. No, I don't know. Anyway, no. In all seriousness, Megan couldn't make it. Wasn't feeling 100% tonight, but she will be back next week.
Well, and it's because she's been working her ass off at Core Fusion Fitness, which is the gym here in Eugene that's been staying open through lockdown. So we'll give them some props right off the bat.
Core Fusion Fitness. If you're here in Lane County, go support them, man.
I worked out with her last night. So.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, she'll be back. She wanted us to tell you guys that she loves you. She'll be back next week for sure. So anyway, well, you guys, holy crap, here we are. Want to introduce our wonderful guest tonight. We've been chatting a lot offline. You guys may have seen him on Tinfoil Hat. You may have seen him on the most recent episode of the Union of the Unwanted. He has his own podcast, which you guys got to go check out. It's called My Family Thinks I'm Crazy.
Which is true for all of us, right? What a great name for a podcast. I love it.
It's awesome. And if you guys didn't know, he also books all the guests on Tinfoil Hat. He's kind of a big deal. So anyway, everybody give it up for Mark Palmer Steeves. What's up, Mark?
Thank you. Yeah, I book all the guests for Tinfoil Hat. I also help book guests for Skeptiko podcast, another really awesome podcast. But I'm honored to be here. Truthzilla is a podcast I first heard about while listening to Grimerica. And it was really, it was synchronistic because when I started talking to you, Scott, I realized that you guys have been doing this, for a year and a half or so, right? Maybe a little longer, 2 years.
It'll be a year in June.
Okay. So, and I think right when you guys came out, I heard about you guys and I'm like, oh, these guys have been doing it for a long time. And I just had this impression of my mind, Truthzilla, because it's such an awesome name for a podcast. It stands out in your mind. And I remember I heard it was a chick that did the podcast. That's what I thought at first. And it obviously Megan, who unfortunately isn't here, but and then when I started listening, I was blown away. You guys are doing a great job. I love the show. I love the perspective you guys bring to it. But it's an honor to be here, man. If anyone wants to check out my stuff, the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast, it's online. Just go to myfamilythinksimcrazy.com and you can find it everywhere else to listen to it through that.
That's so great. That's so great. Here's a funny story to mention that. I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the air, how I came up with the name Truthzilla.
I've never heard.
Have you ever heard? Oh, I haven't told you even. Okay. All right. So here we go. So we already had the whole podcast laid out, right? We were, we bought the equipment. We set a time and a date. We're like, okay, we're going to go record. But we were all just, and I'd heard Sam say this before. I heard Sam say, you need a good name. You need a good name. And I was like, damn it. And we were tossing around different names. We have some people that we know that are completely just sheep to the extreme. You know what I mean? We were going to call it Wake Up Blank with that person's first name. That would be, a good one. Right. And, kind of funny, just tongue in cheek type of thing. But anyway, so I was in the shower. I think it was the day before or something like that, just singing in my head. And I was singing. You guys ever watch Aqua Teen Hunger Force?
Yeah, of course.
With Shake and little meatball and everything.
Master Shake.
Yeah, Master Shake. Sorry.
Meatwad.
Yeah, and for some reason that song was stuck in my head, and now
Frylock.
Yeah, Frylock, exactly. Carl.
Carl's the best. Carl's the best.
And so like that song for some reason was stuck in my head, and I was like, the Truthzilla, and I was like, oh, the Truthzilla.
Oh shit! You just did that.
And I was like, Truthzilla. I was thinking like truth something, truth this, like truth factory, truth whatever. And I was just like, that song for some reason was in my head, and I was just singing through, and it was like the Truthzilla, and I'm like, oh, Truthzilla, that's a good name right there.
That's great, man.
Do you guys have a theme song for your show yet?
Oh, well, so the intro
that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother story. Yeah. Yeah.
So, we do, but
we do. It's like, well, the little intro riff, right? The little intro riff that we play.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess. So
yeah, but that's from someone very close to us's band that doesn't want to maybe have their association with that. This band thinks we're crazy would be a good example of relating to your show. So
and yeah, I've even like shared the name of the song like on social media, and it caused such a disruption. Like one of the members quit the band straight up. Like it was just like, oh my
dude,
God.
I was gonna say, because my intro for my show was made by this rapper, this really cool guy I had on my show, Destiny Lab. I mean, reach out to him. Maybe he can make that happen. Get the Truthzilla, get that.
Yeah. That's fucking great. I love it.
Great idea.
More into something. But speaking of names, I mean, kind of getting into what we want to talk about today. Yes. My middle name is Palmer, right?
Yes.
And when I was younger, I was getting into all these different books, like the one you have right there in front of you, written by Manly Palmer Hall. And I always thought that was so interesting that, such an obscure middle name. And I shared it with this guy who was really a heavyweight in this whole field of literature, right? Writing all of these deep, hermetic, esoteric topics and keeping them in the public availability, I guess, for lack of a better word, so that one day a little stoner like me can come along and find it, and that's really, I say stoner because I don't know if I would have the mind to read something like that before I smoked weed. Smoking weed was really like the paradigm shift for me at the age of 16. I recently had Chris Bennett on my podcast, and he's written a bunch of books about this and how cannabis has always been a huge part of spiritual cultures of all different faiths from around the world, namely even in the Abrahamic religions. There's use with cannabis. They found on an altar in Jerusalem cannabis resin, and they even can basically, through Chris's research and another woman named Sula Bennett, they found that cannabasum, this term cannabasum that's found in the Bible, actually means cannabis. So for me, this was a big revelatory moment. The slate was wiped clean, and I was able to build this new spiritual perspective. And, I'm from Connecticut. I grew up there, spent my whole life there. And when I was in community college, I was reading these books like The Secret Teachings of All Ages, The Secret History of the World, The Teachings of Don Juan, and I was smoking joints at this park, maybe a block or two away from Skull and Bones Temple, right?
Oh, shit.
So not by any decision of my own. I just happened to go to a community college that was on the same campus as Yale. So basically just hanging out, excuse me. And I was smoking a joint, and I had a shirt on with Geronimo's face on it. And my friend, Sitting Bull's face on it. Sorry, Sitting Bull. And my friend, he wasn't my friend yet, but he came up to me and he says, "Hey man, what's that?" And this guy, he's short, very dark, black hair, he's a Native American guy. We get to talking, and he tells me he's from Arizona. He's an Apache. And he was impressed that I had a Sitting Bull shirt. He just, thought like, oh, cool, somebody's interested in this. And I just happened to be smoking a joint. So anyways, long story short, we start talking about why he came to New Haven, right? He told me, well, I did some bad things. I felt like I had to right some wrongs in my life, so when I got out of prison, I moved from Arizona to New Haven because in the 1800s, Prescott Bush, or the late 1800s, early 1900s, Prescott Bush robbed Geronimo's grave and brought the skull and femur bones to the Yale University campus and put them in the tomb at this little clubhouse, fraternity house called Skull and Bones, right? So just as a 17, 18-year-old dude, hearing all this information from a guy who seemed to be completely legit, never wronged me, never wanted anything from me, just was my friend, taught me this stuff because it came from his heart. It completely shifted my worldview. I realized like this wasn't just internet conspiracy theories. This stuff is here. It's real. It's around me, And he would go every day to this tomb. I call it a tomb. It's not a tomb. It's like a weird Egyptian building. You can look it up online. It's got like pillars and it's tucked away on this little one-way street right next to the art museum. So if you're ever in New Haven, please drive by. I went with him one day, and every day at noon, he would scream Geronimo's name as loud as he could. And it reverberated through the walls of this campus. And he told me that this was a warrior's prayer, right? And at this age, I knew about deja vu. I didn't know about synchronicities, and I experienced, I guess, my first synchronicity when he and I were talking about meditation. We were talking about spirituality. I was asking him stuff about like Native American beliefs. That's something that was just ingrained in me. I always thought that was interesting. So I was asking him about it. He told me, oh, if you burn sage, that'll attract you a woman. I'm 17 years old. I'm trying to find a lady, So he's like, yeah, burn some sage. And another thing, hold on a second. Are we live right now? We're not.
No, we're not live. We're no. This will all be edited. Cool. So
we'll just pause.
Okay.
All right. But so sorry. Normally I'm in Connecticut right now. I'm in Indiana. Right on. quite a journey. So where was I? Amongst other things, he taught me about this warrior's prayer and really just prayer in general, because I was raised Roman Catholic. I didn't really have much respect going to church. I just kind of thought it was boring. I didn't really find it interesting. Yep. So when he taught me about prayer, it added another level to it, and he told me that, well, we use feathers to pray because feathers carry your prayers up to the Creator, right? And that just really resonated with me. So a few weeks later, I'm just kind of sitting in my backyard, taking in the sun. I didn't have a shirt on. I was probably smoking a joint, and I'm just kind of meditating and doing this chant that I had read about in a book. And I close my eyes, and this white light just kind of envelops. And I describe it almost like a blackout, but it was a whiteout. It was completely white. And as soon as I realized it was happening, I just kind of became aware of it, and it went away, right? It's just my curious mind couldn't ease into it. I had to analyze it. So it's gone. I opened my eyes and I looked to my left, and on top of the tall grass was a red-tailed hawk feather just floating there, just kind of like it just landed. And it was beautiful. It was completely intact. It wasn't like some kind of attack from a bird that led it to fall from the bird. It just naturally was shed from the bird as it was flying through. So I bring the feather to my friend Amos. I'm like, check this out, man. And he's like, wow, that's a sign. I said a prayer about you. And I guess he had another friend at the time who was kind of similar, asking him this kind of stuff. And both of us found this red-tailed hawk feather, right? Different birds. I don't think it was the same bird, obviously, but we both had this red-tailed hawk feather. And he told me, he's like, that's a sign, man. That's a sign that you're a true human being. And I was like, what do you mean true human being? I'm a true human being. I know I'm a human being. And he's like, well, I asked about you to my creator, who I believe in, because, I'm telling you this stuff. I want to know if I can trust you, and you found this feather. That's a sign that, I can trust you. And since then, the red-tailed hawk has been something I notice particular times. It's not the most common bird, but it's not rare either. They live around this state, but it's an omen and it's a synchronicity, and it was the first of many that led to where I am now. I mean, COVID, as bad as it was, it gave me the opportunity to start this podcast, use Zoom. Everybody's using Zoom now. I mean, this really wasn't that common a couple of years ago, but now it's so easy. And, because of that, I'm able to work for Sam Tripoli, which is a huge synchronicity, because just 2 years ago, I was listening to his podcast like, Sam, you got to have this guy on. Sam, you got to do this. And now I actually can call him and be like, hey, Sam, you got to have this guy on,
Yeah.
I love
so
Yeah.
It's really, I really think that once you take the belief a step further and you start to know, you start to stop worrying about what there is to believe in and start worrying about what start focusing on what I think that's where manifesting and actualizing your life and who you can become. And it doesn't just have to be the spiritual conspiracy stuff. I mean, anybody can find that. And I think the big secret, when we're talking about secret societies and the occult and the esoteric, is that's what human beings have always been preserving and keeping for one another. And it's the empires, it's the authoritarians, it's the fascists, the communists, whatever label they choose to take. It's the authority that wants to dim that light. And it's always been the secret societies that have carried that torch, through those hard times where people were being persecuted, people were being, the Inquisition destroyed indigenous cultures all over the world. So I think now, as conspiracy theorists in this kind of conspiracy entertainment kind of podcasting zone, we might get carried away into thinking every secret society has bad intentions, right? Whereas in the past, secret societies were probably the only thing keeping these good holy books, or not holy, but important hermetic information, right? The keys to the human mind, the human soul, how to live a happy and healthy life. I think that information, and beyond that, we're talking sacred geometry, we're talking how that goes into architecture, and from that you can build a society and build a functional city. And I think those things were definitely kept in this underground stream. And that's where I've taken a lot of knowledge from, right? Because like I said, I started off by talking to this guy at a park. I mean, he's not homeless anymore, but essentially I was going to college and I learned way more from this guy in a park than I ever did from any of my teachers, So there's this mainstream, and then there's this underground stream of consciousness. And I think that, I don't know what, maybe I'm going off too far, but let's turn this into a question. What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about how like conspiracy theorists tend to feel about secret societies?
Well, I was just going to ask you when you were explaining this. I would like some more examples or some examples of where secret societies have done good for us. And maybe I'm not maybe as far down the rabbit hole yet. Like we said, we started this podcast in June, and I've known a lot about I came from the kind of the medical freedom side of things, and with a vaccine injured child and whatnot, and just learned about that angle is really where I came into this. And I feel like I'm learning this information now. So I'm really curious, and just for our listeners too, like that knowledge is kind of shocks me a little bit, because I think of these secret societies and the ones we know of that are happening right now, your Bilderbergs and your World Economic Forum, or I don't even know if those would be considered secret societies, but
like Skull and Bones.
Skull and Bones is a good one, but the ones that we reference are generally there's not good, right?
Yeah.
There's at least the ones we know about and talk about. Like we're not talking about good things they're doing, and maybe they are doing some good things too, but it doesn't seem like that's what's going on. So I'd like, give me some examples,
Well,
Mark.
let me answer that real quick for myself as well, and then we'll definitely get back to that. So for me, obviously I've been in the conspiracy rabbit hole for a while, and it as things started to unlock, I realized it is all just like it's a very spiritual thing, and it all ties back. This all goes back to the beginning, and it's very esoteric, and there's a lot of elements of just hidden knowledge, like the whole idea of esoteric being the hidden, right? The hidden, and I had a little cognitive dissonance. Like I'll tell you my story about how I came across the secret teachings of all ages. It's kind of funny. Like I went to our local library, and I was just like grabbing books about like Freemasonry and some Aleister Crowley. And I was surprised I even had some of these books, you know what I mean? And then I found secret teachings, and I didn't know anything about, I'd never heard of Manly P. Hall. I didn't know anything about any of this. And I checked it out, and I got home, and I had a stack of them that I was going through, and I didn't quite get a chance to read this. And so the expiration came on the rental on the library checkout. And so I went to go, but what had happened is I had it sitting by my bed, and I spilled some water, right, at one point, and the water had seeped into the back of the book. And so like I was like, shit, they're gonna be pissed. So I like tried to dry it out and like laid some weights on it to like try to flatten it out, and then I just like returned it. And then a couple of days later they called me, and they're like, no, you got to come buy this book, like you can't, we can't take this book back. And I'm like, what? Okay. So lo and behold, now they forced me to own the book, right? Yeah. And so now it's like, okay, well, now I got this copy of this book. I was like, some higher power was telling me, no,
yes,
you need this book. What are you doing? You can't return it. And so I ended up with it. And then I started reading it. And I was like, holy crap. And then I started looking up Manly P. Hall, right? And then, one of the first things you learn is that, he's like a high degree, 33-degree Freemason at that point. So now I'm automatically, my cognitive dissonance kicks in, because I'm like, well, they're the bad guys, right? What the hell? And, but then you start to see, like, once you start reading this book, because it ties like all the way back to the beginning and talks about some of these, like, I really wanted to talk about the idea of Hermeticism and Hermes in general, like from like mythology, and like how that is like the key, the root, or the origin of so many different things, just philosophy and science and art, like all, in mythology stems from Hermes himself. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of like all this, and Pythagoras talks about Pythagoras. I had no idea. I thought Pythagoras was like the Pythagorean theorem, like a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I thought that was it, but no. It's a whole thing. And so just all that knowledge, and to me it kind of seems like being kept from the people is kind of the idea, like having like different, you have like the initiatory class of people and then you have like the profane, right, like the useless eaters, right, and they wouldn't know what to do with this knowledge, so we can't let them have it, something like that. I don't know. So back in the day it was like the sacred geometry.
That's a good jumping off point for me, I think. Yeah. But, I would say to understand how the role of secret societies has shifted, we have to first understand what was going on in the turn of the 19th century, right, to the 20th century. We have scientific materialism becoming a huge part of this burgeoning industry, right? Yeah. Before that, science was profitable, science was valuable, but it was expensive to do. And it was done by wealthy people for their purposes. So they would hire some guy like Kepler or, whoever you want to go for, whichever scientist, and they would do these science projects based on whatever the funding required. And in their free time and their spare time, you found over and over, these guys were doing alchemy, right? Because the pursuit of knowledge, right? Hermeticism is knowledge, basically. That's a good way to sum it up, I think, is knowledge of the esoteric, that which is hidden, that which isn't profane. I think knowledge is power, right? So in the past, it was much easier to control people by controlling knowledge, because before the Gutenberg press, books were very expensive to make. So people really only learned about what they heard or the few books that their community had. So propaganda has shifted. The role of empires has shifted since this 19th, 20th century shift, right? So people are much more aware of what's going on in the world, and people have more power and more freedom than they ever have before, right? So in the past, the empire had such a strong grip, no matter what country you were in, maybe save for like this golden age period, far, where a lot of these spiritual texts, when they were written, was in a time when empire's grip was a little less strong. But for the past 2,000 years, I would say, if we're not going to go down the Tartaria rabbit hole, for the past 2,000 years, empire has shaped society. I mean, we can all agree on that, whether it was the, British Empire, the French Empire, the Spanish Empire, and all the ones that preceded. So the role of spirituality was underground because the empire had to own the people's minds through religion. So those who went against the mainstream or the state-sponsored religion were killed. I mean, we know that with the witches and even the alchemists, right? They would accuse them of witchcraft, but it wasn't witchcraft. It was alchemy. It was these higher spiritual practices that were maintained through these underground streams, right? Like I discussed previously. So when that shifted was with, I guess, mainstream mass production of information. You have books, you have newspapers being printed. This is all in the turn of the century. So, I mean, you had the anti-Mason party as well in the 1800s. There's a lot of anti-Masonic movement type stuff, but
even the Nazis, they targeted Freemasons too.
Yeah, and it's complicated because it's such a large body of people and groups that you can't really just say, oh, all the Freemasons are bad. You
Totally.
just can't. And that's just I'm not gonna sit here and say I know everything. I could be wrong, but from what limited research I've done on it, it seems to me like there is a criteria that needs to be met to call yourself a Freemason lodge, and the direction of what those Freemasons do in that lodge is really up to who's in charge. They all follow the same, creeds and do the same rituals, maybe not all the same rituals, but the basic rituals they do,
Totally.
right?
Yeah,
So
and when I was saying earlier too about like, oh, the Freemasons are the bad guys, like I think that was my initial thought, right? But it's like I've done some more research and I'm not entirely convinced of that either. I mean, I know people who
we have friends that are Freemasons that are wonderful people.
And like I know like Pat Miletich, right? Freaking conspiracy farm, like the champ, right? He's very open about it. You know what I mean?
And
so it's
I
like
think a lot of these guys could say it better than I can, considering I'm not a Freemason, but I think they've been hugely benefited from the information that's taught to them through these lodges, right?
Yeah, sure.
So there is a function to it. And I think that's how it functioned in the past. I mean, all of these great works of architecture, I mean, let's not forget masonry, right? This is because of the inherent truths that are implicated when you understand sacred geometry. Because it's not just mathematics. The implications of sacred geometry are so profound that that's why they require you to believe in God to become a Freemason. Because when you realize that pi is an infinite series of numbers and a circle is really an infinite shape, considering it has no set, it has no sides. It's just a full, and we can get into, you guys can get into sacred geometry with somebody who's more mathematically inclined than me, but that's what I'll say about it. It's profound and it has incredible spiritual implications. So I think, considering the body of knowledge that secret societies have provided, we have to not separate the wheat from the chaff, considering that, things like entity encounters and demon possession and manipulation of consciousness, these are all things that have only existed because of secret societies as well. So yin and yang, there's good and bad in these things. So the same side of the coin, there's alchemy and there's spiritual enlightenment, but then there's also what these black magicians choose to do with it, and guys like Aleister Crowley and all that. And I'm sure you guys know I was on Tinfoil Hat talking about Aleister Crowley. Sam kind of got a little heated towards the end there. And I think he's right to feel that passion, because a lot of what's going on in the world, when you find out, is really dark, you know, and it has to exist in these shadows. But considering the crimes of empire in the past 2,000 years, right, these shadows also harbor good people and saints, you know, people like Rabelais, who despised his fellow monks because he was like, oh, these guys just recite and regurgitate the prayers. They don't even understand the prayers, you know. And Rabelais was, you know, a French monk, and he wrote a lot about cannabis. He wrote about all these different kind of esoteric truths. And I think throughout history, there are figures like Rabelais who have kept this torch passed through this kind of underground stream of consciousness, you know. So that's where I kind of point to the value in secret societies, is its ability to provide shelter against these imposing regimes. I mean, the burning of Alexandria, if we didn't have the burning of the Library of Alexandria, where would our society be? I mean, and there's countless examples of things like that. When we get into politics, I'm not really an expert on foreign affairs, but I'm sure there's a lot of great Chinese history that's being lost because the communist government is deciding to censor and control what information people are allowed to learn. You know, and that's one of the oldest existing empires on the planet, the oldest existing civilizations.
Yeah, it's such a tragedy what we're seeing, you know what I mean? Like just all of it, you know, it's literally just all being memory hold. Like it's literally like they're trying to just wipe out all remnants of anything good. I mean, like, oh my God, I don't even want to get it. Oh my God, I don't want to get into this. Like Dr. Seuss, you know, freaking Looney Tunes, Pepe Le Pew, like it's gone. God. It's all gone, dude. Like we can't have any
down
of
the
it,
memory
you know what
hole.
I mean? Down the memory hole. But you know what I mean? It's just also goes to show like the direction, and like what you just said there, you know, I just kind of got this like hurt feeling in my heart. I was like, yes, dude, 5,000 years of just like that's like society, like that's where the human race, like, oh my God, in China, and like now it's like now we're taught to hate them, you know what I mean? It's like, no, dude, you know, but these are just governments. These are governments. Like we hate governments, right?
Well, and
not
what
hate,
it is
not hate. I shouldn't say hate, but
the spiritual truths, once they're understood, are so profound that it will lead to us being truly free. And that's not something that any empire ever wants. And they've changed roles. They've had to conceal themselves from being known. And I think it becomes very insidious. I'm sorry to hear about your family member, Ed. And I really, my heart goes out to them. I part of the reason why my podcast is named what it is because there's a lot of medical issues that my family people in my family have, that if they only listen to me, maybe they might not be, you know, relying on these doctors who really don't care that much about them. I mean, holistic medicine is the real deal. And this allopathic stuff where they cut and slash and inject foreign objects and all these foreign materials into your body, it's just, you know, it's not right. And it's built off of the military industrial hospitalization complex, you know, with this whole Civil War hospital idea of sawing off the limb to preserve the rest of the body, because these poor soldiers were, you know, getting shot with cannons and losing their whole leg, you know, so they cut off a leg, and all these crazy, gruesome, you know, really extreme ways of saving someone's life on a battlefield rolled right into the modern hospital. And it's great. I mean, if you get in a car crash, God bless these people who drive ambulances and save people's lives. I think there is a need for hospitals, but I think that there's more insidious influence of corporations, especially when it comes to pharmaceuticals, especially when it comes to the big V word. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So
I just wanted to comment back on that too. Just one thing I've noticed is, just since we've been doing this podcast a lot too, is I've repeatedly, you know, alluded to my son as being vaccine injured, but I also want to make the point and to just kind of put it out there into the universe that we've done a lot to heal my son, and he is perfect right now. So like,
that's awesome.
He's doing amazing, you know, and I just want to, I don't want to I don't want to put that on him, right? I want to put put the energy, to put the right energy out there for it. So
totally, there you go.
But yeah, I do think I mean,
he's blessed to have such a bright, enlightened person as his father. I mean, kudos to you for doing that for him, man. I think that's really powerful, and it's important that you're spreading this message on this podcast, because I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there who are going through similar issues and can use hope that there's other options and there's a road to a healthy, happy life, because that's all we want for our kids. You know, I'm not a father, but that's all we want for our kids is to be happy and healthy and live a normal human life, right?
For
That's
sure.
certainly not happening with COVID and all the restrictions.
Oh my God.
But back to the more, you know, interesting occult stuff. If you want.
Well, a thought occurred to me while we were just going off on that too. Like, okay, so I see some very distinct parallels between like doctors. Are doctors a secret society, right? It's like something you have to be brought into and initiated into, and you have to be the bearer of this secret knowledge, right?
Here's a good way back to the loop of it, you know, because everything's a cycle, and we'll go back, because another reason I've always been fascinated with Native American culture is their use of plants, right? Their use of their environment, their symbiosis with their environment. Not every tribe. I mean, I'm not going to generalize. There's millions and millions of different groups of indigenous people throughout history. So I really don't want to generalize, but there's a clear benefit to living closer to your environment. I mean, one only needs to go as far as like Papua New Guinea to see like these people, they don't have skin problems. They don't have like irritable bowel syndrome. They don't have all of these like weird diseases that we get with our industrial diet, you know? And I think that medicine used to be a lot closer to home, just like it is with these indigenous people. They eat the food that grows in the environment that their bodies evolved to be in. And I'm not an evolutionist. I believe in a creator, but I do think that the creator programmed our environment, our nature, for us to be stewards of this environment and to take care of it and gain the benefits of its fruits and its animals and plants, you know. And I think what I've noticed through my studies of Native American culture is that they have people, always one or two people who pass this tradition on to a particularly inclined person, and this information is kept. And I think that's what a doctor really is somebody who learns the wisdom of what the plants can do to help us. And I think in this same period that we mentioned before, in the turn of the 18th or the 19th and 20th century, you had medicine becoming industrialized, concentrated. And this was alchemy. I mean, alchemy was done to do this. I think alchemy has its benefits. Chemical alchemy, right? The taking one substance and transmuting it to another. It is a metaphor for what can happen on a spiritual level, but it is actually where chemistry, modern chemistry, came from alchemists trying to like take lead and make it into gold and all the other crazy things they were doing with their little beakers and flames. So I think what happened was you had these industries who are like, oh, we can make a lot of money selling these cures to people, hence the snake oil salesman trope that gets thrown at anybody who sells holistic medicine. The average, you know, modern person who thinks they're commonsensical would say, oh, well, that's just snake oil salesman. CBD can't do anything for me, you know. Bullshit. All right. Tino Sanchez cured his dog's cancer with CBD. So go to Tino Sanchez Facebook and get his CBD, heal your dog. But I can make that claim. He can't. But yeah, basically allopathic, homeopathic, right? These opposites. They've taken homeopathic medicine and made it allopathic by concentrating it down into these tablets. And not all medicines are made the same. There are some medicines made by pharmaceuticals that are probably helping people, right? I'm not
Hydroxychloroquine? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Sorry,
there are uses for this stuff, but I think the farther we get from nature, the less life the plant has in it, the less it has to offer us. I think all of these pills are okay, but if we actually had the real root of the plant or the bark of the plant or the stalk of the plant, and we mix that into a live tincture and put it in the sun and let the sun's energy in it, and then put it into our bodies, that's how healing happens. And we have to take that approach because Mother Nature is powerful, and Mother Nature can heal us. We're of Mother Nature. We're of this planet. We're of this soil. So why are we going to turn to these, chemicals that we're making in a lab? I mean, everything's natural. Everything comes from the earth, but does it really after you like boil it in sulfur and put mercury in it? Like some things aren't meant to be in the human body just because they come from the earth.
Totally. Yeah, I just I just moved out to this I don't know what you want to call it, like a little homestead type area. It's like kind of like, it's not like a farm, but it's like out in the country, like 15 miles outside of the country. Like I'm renting a little cabin, like this property was 16 acres, like a few other cabins right on the river, huge gardens, raised beds. It's just like, it's a miracle. I'm so grateful to land there. And I'm going to start this season, my first garden. Right. And I was walking with the property owner and they were kind of showing me like what areas I could use. They're like, yeah, you could use all this. And they were explaining about how, so these big raised plant boxes, right? The soil was about, I don't know, a foot from the top of the planter box. And she was saying how like, well, when we first started, the soil was all the way to the top. But if you think about it, as the plants grow, like it pulls all the nutrients and all the stuff out of the soil. And like by virtue of that, like the soil level goes down, you know what I mean? Like the water is evaporating, or like, like picture like a glass evaporating water or something like that. And that's the plants pulling the nutrients that then become the plants. And then the animals that eat the plants then take that energy too. And I guess it makes sense, but I just had never thought of it in those terms, that literally all life like comes from the soil and the nutrients in the earth, man. And I was just like, blew my mind just to see the visual representation of it like that. I was like, whoa, okay.
And consider what we're learning now with our research of neurology and the brain and how we have this endocannabinoid system in our brain. I mean, that just shows to me that this plant that has had such a profound change in my life and offered this paradigm shift, it's more than just some plant. It's ingrained in our human minds.
So explain that system for our listeners.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious.
The endocannabinoid system.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not a neurologist, but what basically scientists have found is that there's a part of your brain that's, whether you smoke cannabis or not, it's made to receive these THC receptors. It's like a puzzle piece, like this THC molecule floats in and it fits perfectly. And it has multiple functions, but it's clear that there's a connection on a molecular level between the cannabinoids, because it's not just THC. There's multiple molecule, chemicals going on. This reaction, it's very complex. They call it an entourage effect because it's more than just THC, it's CBD as well. People are very familiar with that, but there's a lot of active compounds in cannabis that go into your bloodstream. And yeah, it's like I said, it's like a puzzle piece. So to me, that shows that, like going back to the sacred geometry, I mean, you can look at the Fibonacci sequence in plants. You can see it on a pine cone. To me, that shows that consciousness is the active principle. It's the inherent principle. It came first, because why else would, how else did everything just fall into place like that? It just seems to me like that points to something much, much greater than we're being told, because academia, science, these places where we're supposed to be learning the most are not teaching us about this. They're telling us that's phony baloney BS. But guess what? I mean, if anybody has any doubts about consciousness, go listen to Skeptiko podcast, because my man Alex Tsakaris has basically, gone to, toe to toe with all of the guys who think that they're an expert on this. And I'm pretty convinced that it's consciousness first. I mean, look at near-death experiences, look at like this kind of like thing with children where they remember like a past life, you know. It just, to me, that's what empire, right? Going back to empire, has always been trying to stifle our connection with the higher self, our connection with consciousness, with the creator. They want to be the middleman between us and God, right? That's kind of religion, because religions always start with some guy who has a huge inspiration, right? And it's not just prophets. There's guys like Tesla and Einstein who, when you ask them where these inspirations come from, they don't say, oh, hard work. They say it's spiritual inspiration. They say it came from the ether. They say it happened in a dream. And of course they worked hard. Of course they worked hard to be that person, you know, to be in the right place at the right time to receive that information. But that's what we're talking about here when we're talking about secret societies, when we're talking about entheogens, right? We're talking about these plants that offer us a higher altered state of consciousness. This is exactly what the secret societies of today don't want us to know, but the secret societies of the past kept preserved, right? There's the difference. And I think that it's kind of like it's hard because there's a lot of people with a very extreme position on all this stuff. They've been told by their faith that anything that's outside of their faith is false. And to that, I say, okay, fine. You know, that's good. You should have confidence. You should be comfortable in what you believe. If that makes you happy, that's fine. You know, not all of this information is for everybody, you know, but if you're really going to seek truth, you have to be willing to question what you believe. And I think that's the first step, you know, because we're being constantly taught like that's what I mean by paradigm shift. Because I spent my whole life thinking like drugs were bad, drugs were terrible, pot was a drug, don't do drugs. And I smoked weed and it just like, it made me want to read more books. It made me have more thoughts. It made me feel my intuition, my spiritual intuition, which has guided me ever since and has led me to this point where I'm having a great conversation with you guys. And I mean, I'm baffled that anybody really, you know, thinks I have something good to say, because my whole life people are like, oh, give it a break, man. Like, why are we getting into all these deep topics? But with podcasts, there's so many bright people than I ever thought in my small town, you know?
Yeah. Well, I've heard it say, like, I mean, with everything going on, I mean, I think that there is a lot of people that have been ushered into this idea of like the scientism almost, you know, the religion of science is what it's become. And it's funny because, you know, I, with myself, like I grew up in a very Christian home, and like, you know, I ended up out of high school on a little island off of Canada, going to a Bible school. Wow. Right. And that's when I started my journey with drug use. And I will say now I've been clean for many years because I'm a drug addict, right? So
yeah, that's my whole thing. It's like, I wish I could just smoke a joint and then stop there. Like we're both in recovery too. Totally. And it's like, you know, I smoke a joint and then I want a beer and then I want to smoke some meth and then I want to go steal shit from Walmart and then I go to prison. I can't do it. I just can't do it.
Yeah, certainly.
But anyway,
but I think that you know, what is interesting to me is, you know, I felt there was kind of this enlightenment to me when I left religion in a way, but here we are kind of like full circle where the people I feel that are most enlightened around me today are people that have subscribed to a belief or like believe in a higher power of some sort. Right. Like, cause I think that, you know, at some point that it's like that view got so taken over, the view of scientism, you know, has been so corrupted and it's been corralled into, if you believe, I mean, it's almost like it's almost like the left versus right thing, right? Like it's like, I always think like they put it in this way, or if you believe these things, then you believe all these other things too, right? Like you can't just believe this thing and think for yourself and question this other thing, you know, but if you believe this thing here, you know, you have to have all these other beliefs that go along with it, you know? And I think, you know, as I've gotten older, and especially since COVID has hit and everything, the world's gone freaking crazy, man. It's like I've just felt like spirituality is the answer, man. And like and I've seen so many synchronicities, and I've had so much deja vu, and a lot of it's, like I've said, we're very active in our freedom cell around here, and I swear to God, I go to these meetings and I've these people I've been with them before. Like it's just these people that there's a part of me that knows them on a deep level, right? And it happens over and over again. So I think there's obviously something bigger going on there. So I kind of got rambling a little bit there, but
it's all right. If I can jump in, I want to say, I never want to advocate drug use, right? Like when I'm talking about entheogens and I'm talking about cannabis, I really don't want people to like get the impression that I think they should do it. I think what it is humans have done these substances, and we're where we are now because of that. So for me, maybe it took a little bit of weed to get me back, to this point of spiritual evolution where I had the perspective to see it. But I don't think it's necessary. I think it's built in. I think your soul is what's most powerful. And for some people who lose touch with that, they need a little help from cannabis to get them back in touch. Obviously, that's not the case for everybody, right? So, but I think that they have played a role in our spiritual evolution in a way, man.
Oh yeah, totally. And then like hallucinogens have been a big part of my journey. Like I'm grateful that I've had those experiences, for sure. But,
and here's the thing with things like cocaine, methamphetamines, all these pharmaceuticals, what's going on? It's the same thing like we were talking about before, where they take this plant medicine and they concentrate it, they add stuff to it, they invert it, and they turn it into this unnatural thing that really ruins people's lives, And I think that if we didn't have fluoride in our alcohol and all these other like chemicals in cigarettes and like just really just destroying these plant medicines, because there's cultures that existed in history where alcohol was a spiritually enlightening beverage that really did provide a sense of community for people and wasn't destructive because their society was insulated in that way and protected people. And I think really the symptoms of our society can't just be blamed on drug addiction. I think what's happening is drugs are being pumped into society, and it's taking all of these other traumas that are occurring and giving people an unnatural avenue to go down in some ways, and I think a lot of us who have this feeling to do these chemicals are warriors, man, and we're strong, and we're like caged animals, because our society wants us to just put on a suit and tie and choke up our throat chakra and just kind of live this cog in a wheel life. So you get all no, and then you have family issues, and you just want to go back to peace. You want to go back to nirvana because that's who you are. Your soul is peace. Your soul is love. And drugs can give us this like temporary feeling of that. And that's what really, grips people, right? You keep chasing that temporary feeling, and it's not you, it's society. I think it's the larger human coagulation of consciousness is hurting, man. And I think the warriors of our culture have to find other avenues, and our society doesn't teach us those avenues. But that's what podcasting is doing, right? I mean, we're opening our minds to these new subjects, and it's so much more than just like, oh, now I know about 9/11 and JFK. It's like you guys are in a freedom cell. Like that is what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Building a better community, building a stronger family unit, building a stronger mind, body, soul connection, and it doesn't really matter if you get that from Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism, whatever it is. If you find that connection to your higher self and that has a profound effect on you, you know, even if you find it through a Truthzilla podcast, you know, like that's what's important, you know.
Absolutely. Or my family thinks I'm crazy, of course. You know, I really want to encourage people too, like, you know, in preparation for this and off and on over the last few years, I'll throw on a Manly P. Hall lecture. Like, oh my gosh, they're readily available everywhere on YouTube. Also, just a shout out to Billy Ray Valentine at the Infinite Fringe. He's always uploading old Manly P. Hall lectures, and Bill Cooper, you know, old Hour of the Time broadcast. But anyway, but if I get a notification that's like a Manly P. Hall lecture, I'm like, hell yeah, I'll listen to that. He's just so phenomenal. Like, it's so phenomenal, the stuff he talks about. Like, the last one I listened to was on time, his interpretation of what time is and what time as a human being, what that means, you know, and how to maximize your time. And just his perspective is so amazing. And it's just like, you know, he wrote this book when he was 27 years old, apparently 27 years old. And he spent the rest of his life just basically, you know, lecturing. He did like 1,000 lectures a year. I don't know what it was, like just thousands and thousands of lectures, you know, and some of this, and that became what he did. Right. I was also like, we were talking, you were telling me about the Philosophical Research Society. I had no idea about that. And I was looking into that. So you say you had some experience with that yourself? Did you say?
No, I'm aware of it, but I just through their books, you know, I have a lot of Manly P. Hall books, but
yeah,
they're published, or they're what's the word I'm looking for? Published.
Yeah.
How did I forget that? They're published by the Philosophical Research Society, and there's like a sort of group, a mailing list type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in their email newsletter, if that counts.
Oh, hey, yeah. Well, I was looking into it a little bit. Apparently, it's in like an accredited university. You can get a bachelor's degree there. You can also get a master's degree there. And I was like, wow. Damn, dude, I want to get a master's degree from the Philosophical Research Society. And I have like little Manly P. Hall's emblem on there. Like, that would be, talk about like some red pilling, dude. Holy shit. Like,
yeah. I just bought a book today called The History of the Rosicrucians.
Okay. Yeah, and I saw you posted that.
Yeah, in the book, there's a bookmark, and it says like, oh, find the guiding light, join the Rosicrucians today. And all it is like one of these mail-in magazine type coupons, or you mail it in and they send you a book, and you send them $30 and they send you another book, and you know, so you're a Rosicrucian, you know. Okay. So I don't want to say that's what Philosophical Research Society is. That's what I thought it was, but now you're saying it's a university. I think I'm going to enlist.
Yeah, totally. Great. Well, I think it's like through a different college or something like that. It's like UDR or something. I can't remember the actual acronym, but if you go to the Philosophical Research Society site,
well, I know it's located in LA. It's down in California.
Yeah, it is down in California. But yeah, it looked like it was all remote learning, self-paced type stuff too. So
does Gavin Newsom know about this?
I don't know. He probably wouldn't be too happy. People are getting enlightened, you know, because he's definitely part of the problem. But man, I don't know. Definitely encourage anybody to go check this book out. Just you know, that reminds me, like what you were sharing there. It's like, you ever get those like Facebook Messenger messages or something, like from some guy in like I don't know, like Bangladesh or something, like, hi, I'm from the Illuminati. Would you like to join the Illuminati? $10,000. You can join the Illuminati. Right.
I've been getting a lot of Instagram messages that are like, hey, get a financial bump, pray, send this prayer to all 3,000 people and you'll get $200 tomorrow. I'm like, where are these coming from? Who did I subscribe to by accident?
That's the preliminary stages of becoming a targeted individual, maybe something, right? And gang stalking, just warming up to it.
So Mark, I just want to ask, like with all this stuff, so you alluded before, like how do you see what's going on right now? How do you reckon that to all this knowledge
with COVID and
COVID
politics and
yeah, I mean, just the kind of what's been happening in the world?
Well, I'm anti-authoritarian. I mean, that's how I've gotten into all this. I'm contrarian, man. Like, I've always been the black sheep of my family. I've always been just against the grain. And part of that is just being doubtful of what you're seeing in the news. And I trust the guys like Dr. Shiva and Del Bigtree more than I trust Anderson Cooper and Don Lemon. You know what I mean? So that's basically how I get my news, is through podcasting. I mean, the last time I turned on a television in my home was like 2015, 2016. So I just don't really watch TV anymore. And I listen to podcasts and I'm informed, and that might make me seem crazy to my family, but you know, eventually they'll warm up to it. I think my mom is actually someone who doesn't think I'm crazy. She's very, she at least hears me out, you know, but I don't know. It's tough because I worry about my family, you know, and I want them to be careful with what they put in their bodies, you know. So I told them like, hey, my grandmother, she's just turned 91. Like, she never leaves her house. Does she really need a COVID vaccine? You know, like really just laying in, you know, all this as much skepticism and doubt as I can, and while also providing the facts, because that's all it is facts. You're literally fighting disinformation with facts. And yeah, I've always been skeptical. I mean, when I broke my wrist in 2015, I remember the doctor, I was sitting there and they're like, oh, well, your wrist is pretty bad. You know, what were you doing? Skateboarding, went down the hill too fast, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, what do you need? You think you need Vicodin? You think you need oxycodone? I'm like, dude, I don't need medication. I got meditation. And my mom and the doctor kind of laughed, and I just like thought of that in the moment, but I meant it. It was from my heart.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just sat there and I breathed it out and I breathed through it. And it was just a broken wrist. Now I have a freaking plate in my wrist like a cyborg. But, you know, that's just one example of, you know, I really do believe in this stuff. You know, I'm not going to crumble. And I think that moment like that, you know, because I've broken a couple bones, not from skateboarding, all like I'm 6'8". You guys can't tell on the screen. So I'm not exactly like, you know, the best nimble skateboarder with the tricks and stuff, but I'm good on the bowl and vert, but that's about it. So I've broken a few bones, and I think that and I've been a martial artist for the past 10 years. So I think that all of that has contributed to me just having a different perspective, man. So none of the brainwashing propaganda stuff has even really seeped in. I'm just living my life, manifesting, man. And I think while a lot of people were going through a lot of hard times, I was still keeping my positive vibes going. And what did that do for me? I mean, it made me go from just podcasting with Sam Tripoli to like working for him, you know? So it's really, I really believe in manifestation. I have proof of it, you know, and people can listen to other podcasts I've done. Like there was an instance where me and my co-host, Jay, he and I worked together at a farmer's market. And because of a meditation I did a few weeks before that, randomly a piece of gold like fell on the table from some customer. They never came back to claim it. I mean, it's a whole story. I can tell you the on another podcast, or you guys I can send you the link to another time I've told it. I'm sure people don't want to hear it again. I've told it so many times, but I mean, I actually manifested a gold thing that got me and my buddy Jay $800 each. So, so I believe in manifestation, man. It's really real, you know?
Absolutely. The intention. Yeah, man. Like Sam said this to us when we did our little Patreon episode with him. He's like, you guys are an American success story. I'll say that to you, Mark. You're a freaking American success story, dude. It's freaking amazing.
And I always send props to Sam as well, because I think our podcast specifically wouldn't be here if, I mean, not that I'm like the mastermind or anything, but I heard him say on his podcast over and over, you know, just do something different with your life. Give it a year, try something else, you know, just do something, you know, start a podcast, you know, start music, you know, do some art, whatever it is, you know, do something. And like, you don't have to be stuck in where you're at right now. Do something different. I mean, that is really right before we started this podcast.
What was his idea? He came up to me. He's like, hey, we should do a podcast. I'm like, no, it's too late. There's too many.
I was sick of whining to you every day on the phone. I'm like, dude, the whole world around me is crazy, man. You're the only person I can talk to, but I know that we're not the only people who want to hear this, right? There's tons of us out there. I heard it, someone close to me always says we're in this time where we're finding our soul family, right? And I truly believe that, right? Like we're connecting. We've just made connections across the globe, and it's just it's been amazing, right? Because the idea to isolate us and make us think we're crazy. I mean, that's what they do.
Yep.
So.
Yep. So Float Fest 2022. See you there. 100%, dude.
Year, for sure.
For sure. Well, we're going to everybody out there, Squatch Fest. Sasquatch Fest is up in Washington, May 13th, the weekend of May 13th. So anybody out there want to come hang out, dude? It's freaking little agorist, like local anarchapulco type deal, dude. Like, obviously not like probably the big speakers, but that'd be so cool to rally all the troops to all these events. Like I was saying, our friend Mackenzie, who started the Portland Freedom Cell that we kind of based our Freedom Cell off of. She's down in Float Fest right now and is walking around with her camera. I was on a Zoom call with her earlier. I guess Sam had been there last night, and Del Bigtree were there last night, and she was talking to this guy, and he was just listing off all the festivals coming up, like Rainbow Festival. I guess I need to look into some of these. Like Rainbow Festival's going on, so Squatch Fest up in Washington or Washington State. Come on out, dude.
And they don't require masks.
No masks. It's like
Right.
No. So anyway, that'd be pretty cool, man. Like one of these days. Have you been to any of those things, like Red Pill or Marcapulco or anything like that?
I was actually this was like 2014, 15, 16, around there. I had the fortunate moment of meeting Alex Gray. You guys know Alex Gray? He's an artist that does all the artwork for Tool, that like really spiritual art,
Yeah.
So he's a really great artist, and he has this cool house where they have this event called like the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. That's the name of the house. So it's all his art, and they're building like this really cool temple there with some esoteric kind of themes to it. But every full moon they would have this kind of like party. So I went there 3 times with different friends, and it was nothing crazy. Like I was expecting there to be like mushrooms, people taking mushrooms and stuff, but nobody had drugs. It was just a bunch of like-minded, cool people like hanging out. But no, man, I used to be pretty big into like making crystal wraps and stuff. So people would always invite me to like different music festivals to try to like sell my art, but I just never went. I'm not really into that kind of music. I'm more into rap. So
Cool.
So shout out to Army of the Pharaohs and all that underground rappers. But I'm excited to get into this new podcasting event space, because I know as soon as the COVID regulations disappear, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff going on for folks. I know Sam wants do a tinfoil hat podcast fest, like for the Swarm and like podcasts,
Badass. Yeah. Now, okay. Yes. No, now I'm just praying. Yes. I hope you're right, Mark.
Not if Biden has anything to say about it today.
Oh my God. What was that you were reading?
Well, it's just today in his address, the nation or whatever it was, he just talked about how the new rules for people who have been vaccinated.
Oh, so here are the new rules. Here are the new
the medical apartheid is it's at our front door. It's here.
Yeah.
But this is the answer is to create our own network where we don't play by their system. I mean, that's what it is. So
that's the whole basis of this Freedom Cell thing. Because right now we don't know where this is headed, where it's going, but we're just building community. We're just trying to make connections, build friendships, build trust. Worst case scenario, if we have to break away, then we have this intact already. We can just up and go if we can. I don't know. It's pretty cool. Certainly. Have you ever looked into the Freedom Cells movement at all?
Yeah. I what's the guy's name?
Derek Rose.
Derek Rose. Yeah. Derek Rose. He's great. I've not looked into one in my area. Right now I'm in Indiana on a little road trip, but
nice.
Yeah, I gotta see if there's a Connecticut Freedom Cell for sure.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah, I'm all into that, man. I think I've talked to you guys a bunch, because that's kind of my thing with Tinfoil Hat, is like the behind the scenes networking type gig. And I think that's the beauty of this podcasting world, is we're all connecting. There's no competition, we all just like go on each other's shows and promote each other's stuff.
Wear each other's shirts. Dude,
exactly, and then people can benefit from that. It's just a value for value thing, so please go support the Truthzilla podcast. You guys have a Patreon and all that?
Yeah, we just launched our Patreon, and then we're over on Rockfin too. So
okay.
We have a shirt shop.
Oh, the shirt shop. So Ed's wearing his. It's kind of hard to see that. It's kind of like on camera. It's not really. It says World Economic Forum with the 666 and the logo, right? You'll owe nothing and you'll be happy.
Okay.
There you go. Anyway, there's some good ones, dude. There's some good ones
for sure.
I've got a couple designs that like we'll probably get our Teespring store shut down, but I'm like, I'm itching to do it. I'm like, I don't know.
I got a new one too. So
he's got a new one too. So anyway, well, damn. Any final thoughts, Mark?
No, just, check out my website, myfamilythinksimcrazy.com. You can find my podcast there and every other podcast I've been on. This goes out video and audio, or just
video and audio.
So I'm going to put this on my website so people can check out it through my website, but I'm sure they'll find this through yours first. So, but go ahead and look at all the stuff I've done on there. I write a little blog post with every episode I do. I just interviewed Michael Wan, Susquehanna Alchemy. And then I crossed the Susquehanna River like 5 times on my way to Indiana. So it's a pretty synchronistic event, so go check that out. And it's been an honor being on the Truthzilla podcast. Definitely
honors all ours.
Been ringing in my ears since you started a year ago. So it's awesome to be here, man. I really appreciate it.
Hell yeah, brother.
Thank you, Mark.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Wow, that was amazing, dude. Mark was awesome, man. I love his perspective, man. Yep. I always like the Native American approach and just kind of living in synchronicity with your environment. I've always found so much more value in that than what we're being force fed, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, man. It's good to finally meet him for me.
Totally. I've been talking to him for a while.
Yeah.
And we've been talking offline about like different guests, stuff like that. Like, he's done some work for us, booking guests. Yep. He's booked a guest coming up here in a couple weeks, baby. Woo!
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be badass. Talking about weather manipulation, right?
Geoengineering.
Anyway, exciting stuff coming up, guys. Like, holy crap. We got some return guests coming. We got some some heavy hitters coming. Yeah. Like, who knows, man? 2021 is our year.
We have some great ideas too. Just some new ideas for topics and things that are going to be a lot of fun, man, for sure.
Yeah.
But great episode, man. Thank you guys for sticking with us. And we sorry we didn't get to have everyone's favorite Megan here, but we miss her too. But we love you, Megan.
It's not the same.
But anyways, I guess I would like to wish you guys intellectual prosperity.
Pew pew.
Ding.
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 I don't know. Feels weird. I guess. Catch you next time. Don't let the New World Order keep you down.
Pew.
Motherfucker.